Hello everybody, how are the young gentlemen and young ladies? All sprightly and happy and relaxed in the holidays. So you have all the time in the world to read books and listen to stories, right? So let's get started. I have this one story is about isolation when some child goes through a difficulty of not being able to make friends, steady friends, long-time friends. So I found it very touching and very interesting. I thought I would share it with you and I'm sure you'll love it. So let's get started. This story's name is Isolation and it has been written by Leslie Davies, right? So one thing I always wanted when I was at school, I wanted to be a part of group. I would have given almost anything to be a member of one of those giggling gangs of girls who always walked home together and whispered secrets to each other in the playground. You know, maybe quite a few of you would have had that experience when you go to a new school or a new college. What happens is there are already groups formed and they are friends who have known each other maybe a year, maybe more than 4 or 5 years. So they have a certain understanding, and it's quite a picture she has painted, whispered secrets to each other in the playground, and she desperately wanted to be a part of that kind of group because it would give her a sense of belonging. Yes, as my family never settled down in one place for very long and I went to more than 20 schools, I never achieved this ambition. Excuse me. I hope you're sipping healthy drinks, smoothies, right? Okay. So right away she tells us what the reason was. Because she must have changed 20 schools, and that's phenomenal, that's unusual. It was always an outsider. I was always an outsider, a curiosity who people might be friendly to, but who could never really become one of them. So you can understand what she's trying to say. I noticed though that I was never the only one who was left out. At least I could console myself that there was a reason for my being alone. So at least she was considered an outsider because she had a reasonable reason, because she hadn't known them. And so she could console herself. As well as being permanently a new girl, I was also very shy, which didn't help matters. But in every class I was in, there would be one or even two others who never had any friends. There seemed to be no special thing that marked them out from the rest. If sometimes they were fat, spotty, mean, or suffered from halitosis, that's bad breath, so did plenty of girls who had lots of friends. These other outsiders should by rights have been perfect companions for me, but it didn't work out like that. I always avoided them like the plague. After all, to have made friends with one of the unwanted would have tarred me with the same brush. Now, she's really thought over it, right? So aren't they very relatable experiences? Outside school, it was just as bad. I come from a family of 5 children, all close in age. You would think we could have been friends with each other. At least you would think so, unless you come from a big family yourself. With us, it was more like an undeclared state of war. I remember once when I was about 8, we had just moved to another house. Now that is laced with sadness, isn't it? And that's why she feels isolated. Moved to another house. It was it was like this. There were kids who already had the gangs. There is a misprint, kids, I'm sorry about that. And they all defined their territory, which I didn't know about. At first, one Sunday morning I went out for a ride on my bike with my brother. Mick, who's a bit older than I am, he was doing no hands, which I was always scared to try, so he was somewhere behind me. I rode around a corner and there was a gang of boys who had marked their territory and girls playing further down the road. And she had no inkling that you were not allowed to cross their boundaries. I tried to ride past them, but they stopped me. You can't come around here. Of course I can. You can't stop me. I could afford to be brave, knowing my brother would catch up any moment. So that gave her courage and guts to take a stand. The biggest boy came up. He was about my brother's size. Clear off or I'll bust your bike. Just then, much to my relief, Mick came round the corner. You had better watch it. That's my brother. Mick rode up and got off his bike. The other boys sized him up. She says she's your sister. What of it, said Mick. The boy smiled. Here, I want to talk to you a minute. Mick and the boys stood whispering together, occasionally looking round at me. Two other boys were holding my handlebars, so I couldn't get away. Here are the kids. You can see. Yeah, the brother, the girl, okay. Two other boys were holding my handlebars, so I couldn't get away. I didn't mind though. I knew Mick would make it all right. Do you think her expectation was right? Of course it was. Mick and the boys stopped talking and came over to me, and I waited expectantly for my brother's sport. All right, clear off, the boy said. I gave Mick a horrible look, but he couldn't look back at me. They turned my bike round with me still on it. I didn't even struggle. Mick's betrayal had completely stunned me. Oh my God, I can understand. I felt very sorry for myself as I rode back. At the corner, I stopped and looked around. I couldn't even make out Mick out in the group. He had become indistinguishable from the rest, just what she wanted to be. Suddenly, a stone hit me in the chest. I couldn't be absolutely sure, but just before I pedaled off as fast as I could go, I thought I saw Mick's face and his hand up as if he had just thrown something. He swears to this day it wasn't him, but I have never quite believed him. As I got older, I found the best thing to do was to pretend I had no friends simply because I didn't want any. When I went to new schools or new places to live, I never tried to be friendly with anyone, however nice they were to me. That way, I still didn't have any friends, but at least I didn't risk people feeling sorry for me. And instead of knowing I was shy, they just thought I was cold and snooty. I didn't know how good I had become at covering up my real feelings from other people until one day when I was 16. I was just starting once again a new school. It was the last term of the 5th form, and as I was leaving at the end of it, there was no point in my having a school uniform. My sister, who was 14, was starting with me. At least she had a uniform. I had on a blue polo neck jumper and a grey skirt. They were much nicer than the dark brown uniform, but they made me more conspicuous, which was the last thing I wanted. While the other girls were streaming into the school, I stood casually chatting with my sister on the other side of the road. I knew I had to go in some time, but I was putting it off as long as possible. Then the bell rang and everyone disappeared inside the school. My sister started to run, Come on, we'll be late. We got as far as a low wall inside the playground. And suddenly, I panicked. I just couldn't go in. I got down behind the wall, shaking and crying. My sister got frightened too, so we both just crouched there. It was only a low wall. We didn't know what to do. We couldn't go back because everyone would see us out of the windows, and we didn't dare to go forward into the school. Shoot! The main door of the school opened and two women came out, obviously teachers. They were walking out of the school across the playground and were bound to see us as they went past. I quickly dried my face and stood up as if I had been trying my shoes, and my sister did the same. We went into the school. After the effort of doing that, it was quite easy to force myself to walk into the classroom in front of the sea of strange faces. That's how lost she feels. See, there she's entering. Okay, excuse me. I did it automatically, like a robot, my eyes unfocused so they wouldn't meet any strangers' eyes and give me away. About a month after that, it was raining at break. So the girls stayed in the classroom. They were talking and I was reading, so nobody would try to talk to me. I heard my name, so I looked up. A girl with red hair who sat in front of me said, "I was just saying I'd love to be as confident as you are. The way you walked in here that first day, you could tell you didn't give a damn. You just strolled in. I'd have been scared to death. You haven't got a nerve in your body, have you?" I looked at her. In a way, I would have liked to tell her the truth, but I knew she would not believe it if I did. It just would have been worth it to see her reaction. Instead, I shrugged. That sort of thing doesn't bother me. I went back to my reading. The funny thing is that what started as an act became the truth. I'm still shy of meeting people, but I really don't want to have anything but the most casual relationship with them. I'll talk to them. I don't even mind them knowing how shy I am, but I have no desire to get to know them any better. I feel quite happy on my own. So she's all on her own. You might think that's a bad attitude. I don't. After all, we are all on our own, really. The man lying in the side of the road who everyone steps over so carefully without looking at him might be anything. He's probably drunk, but what's the difference? One thing's for sure, nobody's going to stop and find out. He's on his own, just like the rest of us. So, doesn't it? Well, it's a bit poignant. It leaves you with certain thoughts. I would like to ask you, leave these questions with you. Do you think she developed a shell and an attitude? Was it right? Or she should have tried to break through it? What do you think? I would love to have questions and answers for these questions from you. I look forward to hearing from you all. And now I think it's time to read another story. We might not be able to finish it, but we can continue it the next time. That means next Thursday, right? Would you bear that with me? Okay, now this story is on the edge of the possible. There's mystery in it, and it's partly sci-fi, and I want you to think, and I want you to answer my questions at the end of the story and send me messages that what do you think? Is it possible? Do you think it really happened? Did this guy really discover that potion which is mentioned in the story? The name of the story is The Invisible Man, okay? And the story of The Invisible Man is presented as an adaptation for a radio play from a novel published in 1897. So remember, it's 19th century, and the strange phenomena are readily explained by the characters. Decide if you think Invisible Man could have happened. Is he only on the edge of the impossible? Not possible. I would love to hear from you. So, all right, so let's get started. It was supposed to be a radio play. So now the sound comes, wind howling and rain falling. The narrator, the stranger, appeared early in February, late one stormy night, carrying a black suitcase in his thick gloved hand. He was wrapped up from head to foot, and the brim of his soft felt hat hid every centimeter of his face except for his eyes, right? Except for his eyes. He staggered into the coach and horses in, more dead than alive. With snow piled on his shoulders, Mrs. Hall, the innkeeper's wife, thought she had never seen such a strange-looking man. But at this time of the year, travellers were few and far between, and she was in no mood to question her guest's appearance. Griffin was the guy roaring out. This is the man who's covered from head to foot. So we just are introduced to the story, and he says, "A fire in the name of charity. I want a room and a fire," when he enters the inn. Mrs. Hall: "If you can pay, sir, I'm sure you'll find my inn comfortable." Griffin: "I can pay well enough. Here are 3 sovereigns. Mrs. Hall is taken back. "Oh, hello. Okay. Thank you, Bilal Masood, for your kind and encouraging comments. I'm glad you're enjoying the story." All right. "So I can pay well," he said. Mrs. Hall was really surprised. That meant he was a rich man. 3 sovereigns. "Yes, sir. Right away, sir. Please step this way and I'll show you the finest room we have." Now this guy, whose name is Griffin, it need not be fine, just so long as there's a fire and a good stout door with a lock. I wish to be warm and fed and left alone. Mrs. "Yes, sir, I'll have the porter light a fire immediately. Will this room suit?" She shows the room. "Yes, it'll do perfectly, perfectly." And Mrs. Hall can be heard calling out for "Jimson, a gentleman room 8. Jimson, come light a fire. He'll be here directly, sir. He can't get here soon enough to suit me. I'm totally, completely frozen." Mrs. Hall: "I should think so, sir, travelling on such a night as this. If you will excuse me, I'll see to some supper for you." "I'll excuse you right enough. I don't want people hanging about." Mrs. Hall said, "May I take your hat and cloak, sir, to dry that out by the kitchen fire? You are soaked through. I shouldn't wonder." Griffin haughtily: "Oh God, he's a grumpy guy. Don't touch me, ma'am. I shall dry my clothes at my own fire, if I ever get a fire." Mrs. Hall was offended. "Very good, sir. You needn't be touchy. I was only trying to be sociable. No harm in that, I hope, sir." Griffin: "I do not look to innkeepers' wives for sociability indeed. I do not look for sociability at all. I will pay you handsomely for my lodgings, never fear. For the rest, you have all to leave me alone. I have a great deal of work to do, and I wish to do it undisturbed. I fancy this place will suit me. It's remote, it's quiet, and I'm not likely to be interrupted. I trust, ma'am, that I make myself clear. I wish to be left alone, utterly, wholly, completely alone." And then there's some music. Tra-la-la. Now comes in the narrator. He says on the radio, "The stranger got his wish except for the delivery of meals by the porter Jimson. His door remained closed, and for 2 days none but the porter had so much as a glimpse of him, and even the porter had strange things to tell of what he had seen. Jimson enclosed using it." Okay, kept his back to me the whole time. He's telling the people who were working there. He did. Wouldn't give me so much as a glimpse of his face. Got me to wondering. I tell you, I kept asking him questions and making observations about the weather until I thought he'd burst. He was so anxious for me to get out. At last, he couldn't control his anger and he whirled around. Would you believe it? He talked to me through a handkerchief. Held the thing right up to his face like he didn't want me to see him. You know what I think? I think he's invisible. Mrs. Hall, who was listening to this, she laughed. Lord help us. Invisible? You say you are a superstitious old fool. Jimson, your mind must be wondering. Narrator, but though Mrs. Hall scoffed at Jimson, her curiosity about the stranger changed gradually to fear. The little town of Iping quickly came to accept the man at the inn as a standing topic of conversation. But after a week, a new mystery broke out which occupied everyone's attention, and conversation was now given over to the rush of burglaries that had erupted in the neighborhood. Oh my God! Another twist to the story. The police found themselves helpless. There were no clues of any kind. Sums of money just seemed to vanish into thin air. Several weeks went by, and then one day, Dr. Cuss, who had been going from house to house, taking up a collection for the new nursing home, came running down the stairs of the coach and horses, his eyes ablaze with fright. Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh God! What happened? Mrs. was frightened. Why, Miss Dr. Cuss, you look as though you've seen a ghost. Mr. Dr. Cuss, it's worse, Mrs. Hall. Worse, the man in room 8. Mrs. Hall, scared you off, did he? He's very particular about being left alone. I should have warned you. I thought I'd go in to see him for a minute. Heard he was rich. Thought you might give me something for the collection. I knocked on the door and waited. There was no answer. Perhaps he didn't hear you. Dr. Cuss, just what I thought myself, so I took the liberty of walking in. He was working in a minute. He heard me behind him. He jammed both his hands into his coat. But right before I was able to see, Mrs. Hall breathlessly, to see what, Dr. Cuss? He was terrified, he said. He has no hands, Mrs. Hall. They were just 2 empty sleeves. And when he turned around, I saw something else. He has no face. The man in room 8, no hands, no face, just emptiness. You can see right through him, except with his clothing covering him. That's why he's always wearing those bandages and the hat and the smoked glasses. Mrs. Hall, Jimson was right. The stranger in room 8 is an invisible man. My God. The strange story told by Dr. Cuss spread through the town like wildfire. Most people refused to believe it. It was too preposterous, but suddenly it seemed to explain the petty thieveries that had been going on. How else could this have been managed except by a burglar who was invisible? A deputation of townsmen was soon formed, all with the purpose in mind to arrest and capture the incredible invisible man. Dr. Cuss, should we knock on the door and burst right in? Jimson says, no use in knocking, it would only warn him. The first men out of that group who are there to catch him. Jimson's right. He'd have a chance to make himself invisible. We'll do better to just rush in, take him more by surprise. Dr. Cuss said, very well, courage. Men will capture if there's anything to capture. Now then, 1, 2, 3, push. Door being flung open. We've got you now, invisible man. Oh, my secret is out. Dr. Cuss said, I don't see him. First man, the second man, I don't see him. Where is he? The voice came from that direction. Jimson, look, that bandage is hanging in mid-air. Must be him. Hurry. He's moving too fast. Griffin, coming nearer but not on, laughing. Is it a fight you want, fools? You're no match to me. How easily I can elude you. The first man, the bandit, has dropped to the floor. Look, he's taking off the other one. We'll never catch him once he gets him off. He'll be invisible again. Griffin, laughing. There, that's the last of it. Now come and catch me if you can. Fools, all of you. Here, Dr. Cuss, a blow with a poker to teach you to meddle when you aren't wanted. Sharp blow he gave, and you could hear the body falling. Oh my God, he's killed the doctor, he's killed the doctor. Griffin, I'll kill you all. Before I'm through, you have found out my secret, you'll never track me. Fading away, you'll catch me. No, nobody can. The invisible man, Now comes the narrator on the radio. Now there can be no doubt of it. The whole of Iping was convinced that he had been visited by an invisible man. Word spread round from town to town, but just the people of Iping had refused to believe at first. But the rest of England followed suit. In Burtock, a town not far from Iping, the story was presented in the evening paper. It caught the attention of a member of the society, Dr. Kemp, and his housekeeper. Mrs. Mallory, have you heard about the strange goings on in Iping? Dr. Kemp asked. An invisible man, they say. Yes, Mrs. Mallory, have just been reading about in the paper. Rubbish, superstitious rubbish, Mrs. Mallory said. I thought so myself, Dr. Kemp, but they say, Kemp said, I don't care what they say, it's simply a case of mass hysteria, a readily explainable phenomena, I can assure you, Mrs. Mallory said. All the same, sir, I thought I'd leave a bit earlier than usual tonight, if you don't mind, just in case the invisible man is walking around. I should like to meet him, you know. I tell you it's impossible, Mrs. Mallory. Still and all, you may leave if you like. Just see that the windows are all closed in the library. I'm going there in a moment to do some work. So they are all a little bit scared. Yes, I have closed them, sir, and have turned down your bed too. I'm my regards. Little does he know what's going to happen next. Narrator, it was 2 o'clock before Dr. Kemp had finished his work for the night. He rose, yawned and went upstairs to bed. He had already removed his coat when suddenly he noticed that something seemed strange in the room. Dr. Kemp's scientific pursuits had made him a keen observer, and now he looked around, investigating the room with all the powers of his senses. Anybody listening to the story, can you message me what time it is? Thank you. Kemp fading in. Strange, something seems not quite right. What is it? A sound less than a sound. Hello? What's this? The bed is depressed, as though someone had been sitting on it, and there's a sound as though someone is breathing heavily. My imagination's playing tricks on me. All that talk of an invisible man has even rattled me. Sound. The door slams. How did that door come to flash shut? There's no breeze. The window isn't open. Is there someone in this room with me? I says, this is a piece of luck. Fancy seeing Kemp again after all these years. Did somebody send the time? Okay, no. I say, this is a piece of luck. Kemp, how do you know my name? Where are you? Who is it? I should think, Griffin says, I should think you'd be able to guess who I am after all the talk you've heard. I'm the invisible man. That doesn't frighten you, Kemp formed. I'm a scientist. I'm never frightened by testimony of my own senses. I did not believe you existed until now. But as I've been forced to change my mind, I see no reason to lose hold of my senses. Excuse me. What happened is, I should think you'd be able to guess who I am after all the talk you've had. Okay, Bilal wants to know what happened in the last page. Well, what happened was, since he was caught, he ran away. He was discovered from Iping, is the town where he was staying in the inn, and then he probably ran around and he reached this other town where Dr. Kemp, a scientist, a famous doctor, who's at his home, and he's reading a newspaper, and his housekeeper talks to him, tells him that I've heard about this invisible man. Have you? He said, it's right here in the newspaper, but I don't believe in such things. I'm not superstitious. But they both are subconsciously scared, and she wants to go home early, right? So she leaves home and she closes the windows, and when Dr. Kemp comes into his room, he realizes somebody has been sitting on his bed. Then he hears heavy breathing, and then he feels as somebody has slammed the door, and then he starts talking to that movement. And then Griffin, the invisible man, speaks to him and calls him by his name. And then Kemp says, Dr. Kemp, how do you know my name? Where are you? Who is it? Griffin said, I should think you would be able to guess who I am after all the talk you've heard. I am the invisible man. That doesn't frighten you? Kemp, formally, I'm a scientist. I'm never frightened by testimony of my own senses. I did not believe you existed until now, but as I've been forced to change my mind, I see no reason to lose hold of my senses. Griffin, you were always a man of nerve. Kemp, don't you recognize my voice? I'm Griffin of University College. We were students together. Kemp's surprised. Griffin! Griffin said, I was a bit younger than you were. You must remember me. I was an albino with white hair, pale skin. I'm still a man like yourself, only now I am invisible. So I leave you guys here with the mystery about the invisible man, and you keep thinking and message me whether you think it's possible to have come across an invisible man. Do you think somebody can turn into himself? Because they both are scientists and doctors. So I will wait for your answers. So lovely to see you all. Thank you for your encouraging and interesting messages. Keep it up. See you. Bye-bye.